I'm standing in front of Highland Plumbing on Long Beach Road and East Chester Street. Why am I here? Because of its connection to this week's Parsha, Parshas Pinchas. Begins with an act of zeal by Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the Kohen Gadol. He sees a horrible Chilul Hashem that is taking place in public. He acts and he stops a plague by doing so, and he's rewarded by becoming a Kohen. What was the plague that, and why were the Jewish people doing this? They were seduced by the Midianite women, but they were worshiping an idol, called perverse idol called Baal Peor. The rabbis teach us in the Talmud that Baal Peor was an idol that wasn't just worshipped in the normal way of bowing down, pouring wine or oil. It was worshipped by going to the bathroom on the idol. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Mir Yeshiva, that came from Europe to Shanghai and then came to Yerushalayim, he asks the question, he says, what kind of worship is Baal Peor? I understand somebody wants to worship the sun or a tree or a person. They worship all kinds of things. But what is Baal Peor? Why in the world would somebody worship something like that and consider it a god? It doesn't make any sense. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, and it makes so much sense, it wasn't so much the worship of something, it was the lack of worship. They were showing disdain, they were disgracing and debasing the idea of worship. You know, throughout Jewish history, we've always talked that the antithesis of believing in God is avodah zarah, is worshiping idols, sun, the moon, the stars, trees, rocks, whatever it may be. People were trying to worship something, they were trying to feel God in some way, but they were off, and they were very off, and avodah zarah is very, very serious in Jewish tradition. It's a very, very serious sin. But with this idea of Baal Peor, of worshiping it in this way, the only way it makes sense is they were showing that they were against the idea of worship completely. What we're seeing in America these days is not only a battle of which God to worship, but really there's a battle of should there be any God. The idea that there is no God, there is no history, there is no precedent, there is nothing above us, there is no greater objective morality. This is kind of what's going on in America and in Europe and in a lot of places in the world. And the antecedents of this we see, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz so brilliantly taught us, is from this worship of this sickening way of Baal Peor, of showing disdain for God and showing disdain. Reminds me, I read that when the first cosmonaut went into space, the first human that went into space, Yuri Gagarin, and he looked out the window, he came back, he says, I didn't see any God. That's the communism that the communist world has brought to us. And that is also, if not as bad as avodah zarah, perhaps even worse, perhaps even more destructive. And we're seeing so much of that in our day today. I don't know that necessarily people are worshiping other gods, but to say that they're not worshiping, that they don't believe in Hashem, they don't believe in any history, in any tradition, in any precedent, that we're seeing. That's what we have to fight. The 3 weeks is a time when Hashem distances himself from us. And it's a time when we have to aim and yearn to come closer, to fight the forces that are bringing us Baal Peor and are bringing us the plagues, and to be like Pinchas and to try to prevent them, and to be like the Jews that we've had for thousands of years and stand up for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a beautiful Shabbos.